When the galaxy's fiercest species needed humanity to survive. Sci-fi epic, HFY. The Galactic Union's council chamber buzzed with an intensity rarely seen. Delegates of countless species murmured in disbelief, their collective attention fixed on the hollow projection dominating the center of the room. The image depicted the towering and infamous Ralvik warriors, their once mighty figures slumped in defeat and agony. "They've contracted something beyond our understanding," spoke the Ithran delegate, her tone a mixture of fear and fascination. "Their regenerative abilities, their unmatched resilience, it's all failing. If they succumb, we may lose the guardians of our galaxy. And who would they turn to for help?" Rythak of the Grawl snarled, his tone thick with contempt. "Humans?" The murmurs grew louder, a mix of skepticism and desperation. In the shadows of the room, Dr. Elaine Carter adjusted her jacket and stepped forward. "Yes," she said, her voice firm. "Humans." The room erupted. Delegates whispered in disbelief, some openly laughed, but the Ralvik ambassador's imposing figure silenced them all. "Dr. Carter," the Ralvik rumbled, his voice strained but authoritative. "Our warriors face extinction. Your species has done what we could not, adapt to weakness. We need your expertise. Will you help us?" The Ralvik warriors were legendary, a species feared not just for their strength but for their biological perfection. Diseases that ravaged others had no hold over them, and injuries that would kill most healed in hours. For eons, they had believed themselves immune to weakness. But the unknown pathogen that now coursed through their veins was relentless, targeting their regenerative core and rendering their bodies frail. Dr. Carter found herself aboard the Ralvik flagship, flanked by towering warriors who seemed like ghosts of their former selves. They guided her to the medical wing, where rows of Ralvik lay in stasis pods. The sight was unsettling. These were beings who had once crushed entire fleets, now reduced to helpless figures encased in flickering light. Carter's heart ached, but she steeled herself. "You're in over your head," whispered her AI assistant Vega from her wrist communicator. "I know," Carter muttered, her fingers already running diagnostics. "But that's never stopped us before." As Carter studied the pathogen, her mind raced. It was unlike anything she'd seen before, a rapidly evolving microorganism that targeted the Ralvik's unique regenerative pathways. But it was precisely their strength that gave her an idea. "If this thing adapts to their biology," she murmured, "what if we out-adapt it?" The stakes were high, and the pressure unrelenting. Carter's approach was unorthodox, using human DNA's chaotic, adaptable nature to create a counteragent. But as her work progressed, the pathogen evolved faster, threatening to overwhelm even her experimental treatments. Carter refused to give up. For humanity, the idea of facing insurmountable odds was second nature. And for the Ralvik, trusting someone so fragile to save them was a lesson in humility. Together, they faced not just the pathogen, but their own limits, and redefined them. When the galaxy's fiercest species needed humanity to survive. Sci-fi epic, HFY. Dr. Carter's lab aboard the Ralvik flagship buzzed with activity. Her makeshift team, a blend of skeptical Ralvik healers and a few human specialists brought in at the last moment, worked tirelessly to combat the pathogen that was ravaging the warrior species. The air was thick with tension and the faint hum of medical machinery. "Doctor," Vega's voice chimed from her wrist communicator, "the pathogen is mutating again. This new strain is resistant to the last treatment attempt." Carter sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Of course it is. This thing is learning faster than we can adapt." The Ralvik chief healer, Vorith, growled in frustration. "Your methods are reckless. If we had relied on our traditional remedies, they'd already be dead." Carter snapped, her voice cutting through the din. "Your strength lies in regeneration, but that's exactly why this pathogen is winning. It's feeding off your biology. We need to think differently." Vorith's yellow eyes narrowed, but he didn't argue. The Ralvik weren't used to being wrong, and even less so to admitting it. The team's efforts had hit roadblocks at every turn. The pathogen's adaptability mirrored the Ralvik's legendary resilience, making every countermeasure obsolete within hours. Despite this, Carter pressed on, exploring ideas that seemed absurd even to her. What if we infect the pathogen itself? She proposed during a tense briefing. The room fell silent. Voritha's deep voice finally broke the stillness. Explain. We design a virus to target the pathogen directly, Carter explained, sketching diagrams on a hollow display. A controlled contagion, engineered using human DNA as a base. Our genetic case might overwhelm its ability to adapt. The idea was radical. Dangerous. But it was also their best shot. The Ralvik ship entered high orbit around their homeworld, a planet of towering obsidian cliffs and glowing bioluminescent forests. The Council demanded results, and Carter's team had to deliver. As Carter worked tirelessly, doubts began to creep in. The pathogen's rapid evolution outpaced even her wildest calculations. The Ralvik, proud and stoic, were beginning to lose hope. Warriors who had once faced down fleets with bare hands now lay incapacitated, their bodies brittle, their spirits dim. Why do you care so much? Vorith asked her one night, his voice unusually soft. Our kind has never treated yours as equals. Why risk so much to save us? Carter didn't look up from her work. Because when you're strong, you don't let others fall. That's what being human means. Finally, the breakthrough came. The engineered virus worked, at least in simulations. But there was no time for further testing. They had to deploy it now or risk total extinction of the Ralvik species. Carter stood in the containment chamber, readying the delivery system. Vorith approached, his imposing figure still managing to look frail. If this fails, he began. It won't, Carter interrupted, injecting determination into her voice. Trust me. The containment chamber glowed as the virus was released into the atmosphere, a shimmering cloud of hope and uncertainty spreading across the Ralvik fleet. When the galaxy's fiercest species needed humanity to survive, Sci-fi epic, HFY. The atmosphere on the Ralvik flagship was electric. Monitors displayed the shimmering cloud of the engineered virus as it dispersed through the fleet's atmosphere filtration systems. The Ralvik warriors lay in stasis pods, their bodies fragile and ravaged, as the counteragent began its work. Every second felt like an eternity. Dr. Carter stood beside Vorith, watching the readouts closely. For a moment, the numbers remained unchanged, the pathogen's signature still dominating the graphs. Then, a flicker, a tiny shift in the data. It's working, Vega's voice chimed in her ear. The pathogen's replication rate is slowing. Cheers erupted from the human technicians. Even the stoic Ralvik healers let out collective sighs of relief, their imposing frames visibly relaxing for the first time in days. Vorith, however, remained silent, his eyes glued to the screen. What happens if it mutates again? He asked, his voice low. Carter didn't answer immediately. We're buying time. If it mutates, we'll adapt faster. But for now, this is the win we needed. Hours passed, and the first signs of recovery emerged. Ralvik warriors began to stir in their pods, their powerful bodies showing hints of regeneration. Skin once marred by lesions now glistened with the sheen of renewed strength. The pathogen's grip was breaking. Vorith watched as one of his kin, a warrior named Talthar, opened his eyes for the first time in weeks. Talthar's gaze met Voritha's, and a flicker of their old ferocity returned. We're not done yet, Carter warned, her tone firm. This is just the beginning of their recovery. We need to monitor every stage and be ready to adjust. But her words couldn't quell the growing hope that filled the room. The victory, however, was bittersweet. The Ralvik High Council, observing the events remotely from their homeworld, convened to discuss the implications. Their greatest strength, biological superiority, had been compromised, and it was humanity, the species they had once deemed fragile, that had saved them. This changes everything, one council elder remarked. If the galaxy learns of this, the Ralvik's reputation will be forever altered. And perhaps, Vorith said, standing tall once more, that's a good thing. Strength is not just what we are born with. It's what we build together. Carter, listening from the side, allowed herself a small smile. It was a rare admission for a Ralvik, a species that had always prided itself on its independence. This crisis had humbled them in ways no battle ever could. Days later, Carter prepared to leave the flagship, her work complete for now. Vorith approached her, his towering figure casting a long shadow. "You've saved us, Dr. Carter," he said. "The Ralvik owe you a debt we can never repay." "You don't owe me anything," she replied, adjusting her pack. "Just remember what this taught you. Strength isn't just power, it's knowing when to ask for help." As Carter's shuttle left the Ralvik ship, she looked back at the glowing planet below. Humanity had proven itself not through might, but through compassion and ingenuity. And as whispers of the Ralvik's recovery spread across the galaxy, so too did the story of the humans who saved them. The galaxy would remember this moment, when the strongest species turned to the weakest for salvation, and learned that true strength lies in unity. When the galaxy's fiercest species needed humanity to survive, Sci-fi epic, HFY. The Ralvik flagship hovered silently over their homeworld, its atmosphere of triumph tinged with humility. Inside, the last recovery protocols were running smoothly. The engineered virus had eradicated the pathogen without harming its hosts, leaving the Ralvik to recover their strength. Warriors once thought lost now stood tall, their bodies restored, their ferocity returning. Yet the air felt different, tempered, reflective. Dr. Carter stood in the medical bay, making final checks on the remaining stasis pods. One by one, the Ralvik emerged, their eyes meeting hers with something new, respect. "You've done the impossible," Vorith said, his voice carrying a note of wonder. "The Ralvik owe you everything." Carter shook her head. "You owe your survival to your adaptability. Asking for help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom." Vorith inclined his head, a rare gesture of deference from a species that prided itself on dominance. "We have much to learn from your kind." As the news of the Ralvik's recovery spread, the galaxy reacted with shock and disbelief. The Ralvik were legendary for their strength, their regenerative powers considered unparalleled. For them to seek aid, let alone from humans, was a revelation that shook the galaxy's perceptions of power. The Galactic Union convened an emergency summit, its members eager to understand what had transpired. Delegates debated fiercely, some praising humanity's ingenuity, others expressing fear that this new alliance could upset the balance of power. "They've saved the Ralvik," one delegate argued. "If humanity can achieve that, what else are they capable of?" "They're unpredictable," another countered. "Their resourcefulness makes them dangerous." Back aboard the flagship, Carter prepared for her departure. She stood on the observation deck, gazing at the vast expanse of stars. Vorith approached, his footsteps heavy but measured. "You're leaving?" he asked. Carter nodded. "My work here is done. You'll recover fully now, and your people will rise again." Vorith hesitated, uncharacteristically unsure. "You're kind, you defied all expectations. The Ralvik have always seen themselves as protectors of the galaxy, yet it was humans who protected us." Carter turned to face him. "Maybe this is your chance to redefine what it means to be strong. Strength isn't just about fighting, it's about knowing when to stand together." As Carter's shuttle left the Ralvik flagship, a transmission from the Ralvik High Council played across the galactic networks. It was a message of gratitude and acknowledgement, a rare admission of vulnerability from the galaxy's fiercest warriors. "Humanity has shown us a new kind of strength," the message declared. "In unity there is power. In compassion there is resilience. And in humility there is wisdom." The message sent ripples across the galaxy, inspiring species long subjugated to consider alliances they had never thought possible. Humanity, once dismissed as fragile and insignificant, was now a beacon of ingenuity and cooperation. As Carter returned to Earth, she reflected on the journey. Humanity's ability to adapt and innovate had once again proven its worth, but more importantly, it had changed the galaxy's perspective on what it meant to be strong. In saving the Ralvik, humanity had done more than survive, they had reshaped the galaxy's future. The Ralvik would rise again, not as solitary warriors, but as allies bound by a lesson in resilience and trust. and the galaxy, watching from afar, would never forget the day the most feared species turned to humanity for help.